All right, well, thanks everybody. My name's Shawn. I'm a managing partner at Dentist Nerds, and today we are going to be discussing the science of dental practice growth. As Fazal had mentioned, my background is actually in analytics. I was actually working for a tech company out here in the Bay Area. I lived here for 4 years myself, and I apply a lot of the principles and foundations that I learned from working at a company that was a pre-IPO company that was in the cybersecurity world, and now it's like a Fortune 500 company that's publicly traded, and there was a lot of things we were measuring. So I take a lot of those principles and I apply it to dental practice growth, and so that's what we're going to be talking about, which is transforming your marketing spend into predictable profit for your dental practice. So the question that defines your growth has changed, and a lot of in a lot of scenarios, practice owners, they work with a marketing company, and the first question they ask the marketing company is, how many leads did I get? It's a metric that defines how many people opted in to your website or to a marketing campaign. And then the basis on that question is how many of them are going to become patients, right? But this is what I think I want you all to start thinking. More so, rather than how many leads did I get, I want you to think how much in production did those leads generate? And then how much can we predictably improve? Because leads don't matter. Production matters. If you have 5 leads, but you converted all of them, and your production was 50K, that's better than getting 100 leads and your production's at 20K. So for a long time, and even right now, I think in dental marketing, people think about things in terms of volume, but if you want to be a top performing practice that grows 20% compounded annually year over year, you need to be thinking about predictability, and you have to measure your profitability through data and strategy. So to tell you about Dentist Nerds, we're not just a vendor, we're not just a marketing company, we're really a growth partner, meaning that we get ingrained into your ecosystem to understand how we can improve your profitability. So we don't just sell leads, we build growth engines, and we grow them by analyzing 3 different aspects, which is your marketing data, your front office, as well as your financials. And majority of the time, marketing companies for dentistry don't even look at marketing data. They just sell you leads, right? So we want to look at campaign performance. We want to look at the quality of those leads. We want to look at the efficiency of the campaigns. We want to know how many of them are converting into actual patients and setting appointments, as well as what is the production value and actual ROI of your marketing. So we pride ourselves in being hyper transparent about the return on investment that you receive when you start doing marketing. So let's talk about our Dentist Nerds 3-tier performance model. 1, measuring marketing efficiency, identifying quality traffic versus wasted spend. 2 is the front office, how many of those opportunities are turning into real patients, and number 3 is the ROI and production outcomes. I want to tie every single dollar that you spend into understanding how that translated into profitability for the dental practice. So I have a systematic framework to understand how we can best maximize your growth. I'll tell you a little bit about my journey. As I mentioned, I spent 7 years in high tech, mainly in financial analytics, revenue analytics, specializing in product performance and sales performance, and how to further optimize that revenue. When I joined the company, this is a picture of our IPO date. I had to be at the NASDAQ building in San Francisco at 5 a.m. and I was hungover by 10 a.m. So I joined a company back when it was a kind of a startup. It was 700 employees when I joined. They had been raising a lot of money with Google, and by the time I left, the company had become 10,000 employees. And currently they're at a market capitalization of $100 billion. So they're the biggest player in their space right now. And I was the youngest global manager of analytics in the company because I achieved that before the age of 30. So the majority of the people that reported to me were like in their 40s and 30s. So it was awkward, but and I think I got there because of a lot of the ways that I applied analytics and translated that towards actionable results that the sales managers, the sales VPs, the finance VPs could use towards their side of the business. So as I mentioned, my job is to translate technical data into actionable business insights. And so I don't want to just overwhelm you, like a lot of the times when you work with a marketing partner, they speak a lot of jargon, as in they use acronyms, but they don't really understand how that translates to dental, right? So somebody says, like you work with a marketing agency, your cost per click on the veneers campaign decreased by 28%. Okay, but what does that mean for me? The business aspect of this in dentistry is your cost per consultation dropped, which means that every single veneer case that you land costs you $400 less to acquire. That makes sense to you guys. CPC dropping by 28%, that doesn't make sense to you guys. So I don't want to overwhelm you guys with dashboards and technical metrics. I really want to deliver actionable decisions for you guys so you have clear insights into how your marketing is working for you. So the first thing we're going to analyze is marketing efficiency. Are your ads attracting quality traffic, or are they just burning through your budget? And the majority of dental practices I've worked with before they onboarded with me at Dentist Nerds, they'd spend 2, 3, 4, 5K a month, and they couldn't tell me how many new patients they were getting as a result of that. And I would tell them, go turn off the marketing and see if it makes a difference. And a lot of the times it didn't make any difference. So to me, that's a wasted budget. Let's get hyper specific. We're in the Bay Area. We're in the San Francisco Bay Area. This is, on average, the third most expensive place for paid marketing. Number 1 meaning New York City. Number 2 meaning Los Angeles. Number 3 is the Bay Area. So what I'm going to share with you is some estimated cost per clicks on Google for certain keywords, and then cost per lead. So what is the difference? Cost per click is what you pay every single time you have a potential patient who's looking for dentistries and they click on that advertising campaign, and every time they click it, you pay a certain amount of dollars. Cost per lead is how many times that click translates into a lead that goes to your front office to try to convert into a new patient. So with a keyword like dental implants, each cost per click is about $25 to $60 every time you click. Dental implants, another $40, $40. The cost per lead, depending on how effective your team is at converting those, is typically $200 to $450. And then on top of that, we have to talk about cost per patient. We're going to talk about that later. So that depends on how often your team can do a good job of converting a lead to a patient. Veneers and smile makeovers, $20 to $55 per lead. We estimate that it's around $100 to $400 for, $20 to $55 for click, with, let's say, $60 to $400 for a lead. Emergency dentistry, $12 to $30 per click, anywhere from $90 to $220 for a lead. Dentist near me is about $8 to $25, just depends on the area you're in. $75 to, let's say, just under shy of $200 for a lead. And for braces, ortho, you're looking at anywhere from, $7 to $22, and sometimes that cost per lead could be up to $200. These metrics are 40 to 60% lower in other markets. So if you open a dental practice in Raleigh, North Carolina, instead of the Bay Area, take a 40% discount on all these costs. So you're choosing to be here, you better know that you need a right strategy, the right budget, the right team, and the right analytics to track that what you do on your marketing spend is actually going to be profitable for you if you want to play in the long-term game. Now, I'm going to tell you what I see as the typical range, and then what I think is a very high performative practice. So typical range of a cost per lead, $30 to $120. A good high performative marketing company can get that cost to under $60. So if you have the right strategy, a good marketing company can get the cost per lead to be anywhere like 50% lower than the average marketing company. The cost per new patient, I see on average is about $180 to $400, but a high performative marketing company mixed with your front office can get that cost per patient to under $250 on average. Speed to lead, that's a metric that I developed. Speed to lead is how quickly your practice receives the lead and appoints them or calls them, engages on them. A typical range is 15 minutes. A good practice will get to it in 5 minutes. And we're going to talk about why timing is so important. Show rate. Typical practice, 70 to 85%. I think a really good practice can get 90% of appointments to show up. And then ROI on ad spend. Typical range is about 3 to 7% with a marketing company. We really aim for like the 10x level, where for every single dollar you spend, you get a 10x outcome on return. So the performance gap is really substantial. But our whole entire system is engineered to move your practice slowly and surely or quickly, depending on how quickly we engage with each other and work with each other, to get you optimized to be one of these really high performative practices. So when it comes to ads, a lot of what I'm going to talk today is about advertising. So when it comes to ads, when it comes to marketing in general, you can kind of branch it into 3 different ways, which is search, direct search, people looking for a dentist, or they're looking for treatment. So the demand's already there. So your job is to capture that demand and then convert that into a patient. There's social and video, which is, we talk about Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. This is what I call demand generation. They might not be looking for a dentist, but surely with really good assets, you can create that demand. Then answer engine optimization. AEO, this is a very new one. This has only been around for about a year. This is your ChatGPTs, your Geminis. They are completely changing the dental marketing landscape. Because in the past, people would do search engine optimization, and then they would say, okay, as long as I'm in the top 5 or the top 10, as long as I'm on the first page of Google, that's what really matters. But I can tell you that the way that the AI engines are taking over marketing is substantial. Because sometimes there's practices that aren't even on the first page of Google, but they're getting recommended by ChatGPT. And I believe that 40% of the entire patient acquisition journey is going to happen through AI search engines very soon. Because first of all, there's no way to pay your position to increase it, so it's very organic. And 2, when the AI engines come in, they're typically only recommending 1 or 2 options. That's it for who to see for a dental provider. For us, authentic branding creates emotional trust, and that's why every single client we work with, we create custom content. Because I don't think you can grow a practice anymore unless you're willing to be on video, have really professional, good, high quality assets of your dental practice, and talk and become an educator. So to become a very profitable practice, you almost have to be an educator or a mini influencer yourself, right? So we focus on on-site professional photo and video. We do short form content to build trust. We also do long form content for education. So let's talk about the critical first 10 seconds. When someone lands on your website or they see your ad, there's something called a bounce rate, which is to try to see how long they stay on your site before they exit your site. And what we want to do is try to increase the time that someone spends on your website or on your ads as much as possible, because that tells the AI algorithms, that tells the Google algorithm that this is a very high quality piece of content online. And then this is an example. This is called a heat map. So in a heat map on a website, we can actually see where most people are clicking or where most people are moving their mouse. So if you're starting to see that as they scroll down on the landing page that the heat map is decreasing, that means that we're losing traffic at a certain point of the page. So I'll give you a little bit of recap on everything we've talked so far. It's really important for us to understand how much you should invest into marketing, using an authentic multi-channel strategy to attract high-quality patients. For a long time, dentists, I think most dentists still right now, probably only about 50% even invest in marketing. Most of them are word of mouth. And I really do believe that the word of mouth is dying, because the word from AI is more important. So that's why we focus on a multi-channel strategy, and then how we optimize that user experience from advertising to turn traffic into real patients and opportunities. So next, I'm going to talk about front office conversion. This is where your marketing is going to die or it's going to thrive, your reception desk. And too often, I think that a lot of practice owners really undervalue how important their front office is. These are your mini salespeople, and these are your lead nurturers, these are your appointment setters, your office manager and your treatment coordinator. I see some dental practices don't even have any type of commission or performance-based incentive or bonus. And I think at the end of the day, you need to get your front office staff to really care about the quality of the patients they're bringing in, and you need to make them feel like they play a huge role in the success of your practice. So I'm going to show you two examples with the same exact marketing performance and two different outcomes. So we call this the leaky bucket theory. Let's say a practice spends $5,000. They generate 100 leads. It's about a $50 cost per lead, right? Front office performance, average speed to lead, 4.5 hours. A lot of practices are that way. They have about a 20% conversion off that, or 20% of the people that came in got booked, and I gave them 10 new patients. So they paid $500 for every new patient. Now, if I'm generating full arch implants or ortho consultations, I'll gladly pay $500 for new patients. But majority of you are GPs. So that is a high cost. That might just be the break even. So I don't think that this is the most optimized metric. Let's look at another option. This is what I call the rockstar dental practice. Same exact marketing campaign. $5,000 of spend, 100 leads, $50 per lead. But the front office had a 5-minute speed to lead. They had 55% of the leads convert, and they generated 68 new patients, meaning that their cost per new patient is now $131. See the difference? The marketing had nothing to do with this. This was 100% on the front office. So that's the difference, in that the front office makes or break your ability to market your practice effectively and drive profitability. What is the single biggest lever of growth? It is how fast your front office calls the leads and converts them. And what we see is that if the leads are contacted within 6 minutes of the time that they have, let's say, inputted their information, they are 9 times more likely to convert into a real patient. Why is that the case? Because if you don't talk to them, there's going to be another practice that probably contacts them before you. Your job is to get them appointed as quick as possible. So a lot of the times when people are evaluating high case treatments, high ticket treatments, orthodontics, braces, implants, smile makeovers, root canals, they're probably going to contact multiple offices. So if you're taking 4.5 hours in order to contact them back, but then you have another office that contacted them within 10 minutes, but you were the first one they contacted, maybe you were the one that they actually wanted to go in and get treatment with, it doesn't matter. They already got stolen. It's a very competitive landscape. So I also wanted to talk about some of the common things that I hear from front offices in terms of I can't appoint, I can't get the leads to convert. So I'm going to talk about the 4 largest ones that I hear all the time, But I think that every single time you get an objection is an opportunity to actually convert the patient and show the intent that you really care about them. So the first one, I hear a lot. They just asked for the pricing. Well, I think that when someone is saying how much do things cost, how much is it going to cost for me to get a dental implant? How much is it going to cost for, let's say, Invisalign treatment? Really, that's an opportunity to explain the value behind the price. Why are we different than all the other providers? And create rapport, because that's the first time they called. To me, if someone calls in and just asks for price, but then the office manager says, just come into the office. I'm not able to really talk about that. Or they just say, it costs $5,000. You lost the opportunity to create rapport with that lead. Really, you should be saying, we have different figures and estimations, but I would really like to know more about what's going on with you. How long have you been dealing with this? How much is it affecting your day-to-day? You want to change this from a price conversation to a value conversation about why you and your practice are the best individuals to help service that patient. Another one is saying they called another office. I hear this one too. But to me, it's like, well, find out what they're looking for. Why did they call that other office? Maybe prove that your practice is a better experience. They say, okay, you called this other office. Totally understand. May I just ask you kind of like what kind of symptoms you're dealing with? Is there anything specific you were looking for? And then you open up the conversation loop again. And then a lot of times in those conversations, you can actually set up the appointment for your office as a second consultation, right? Another one is, I need to think about it. If they say, I need to think about that, say absolutely. When it comes to dental implants, when it comes to orthodontics, everyone needs to think about this because this is a really life-changing procedure. So, what I would love to do is send you some material to show you some of the transformations that we've done. And then also, if possible, I'd love to schedule a follow-up call with you. And then nurture them. Because people don't make these decisions immediately when it comes to high-value cases. It takes time. And a lot of them don't even go through with it unless they feel really comfortable. Then they didn't answer. Okay, so if they didn't answer, then maybe we need to have a multi-touch point way of operating where we don't just call them on the phone. Let's implement some text messaging. Let's implement email. I'll be honest with you guys, people are picking up the phone way less than they ever have before. Why? Because they love texting. So if you know that people love texting, when people go on their phone, the number one thing that they're going to is not Instagram. It's their messages app. Because texting and chatting is the primary way nowadays that people are communicating. So the key takeaways is, if you want to sell high value cases, you want to close things that have really high production, then you need to be able to have a really strong nurturing value as well. So let's talk about a realistic benchmark of what I think should be the case if you work with a dental marketing company. I'd say based on, let's say, 100 leads that were generated in the month, perhaps your office is contacting 85 of them, right? Pretty good conversion. And we say about 43 of them got booked into appointments. So a little bit under 50%, that's very realistic. And out of that, 37 of those appointments actually show up. And from those 37, you land 33 new patients. So the way to think about things is everything starts from an impression in advertising, meaning looking at the ad. Then from the impression, it turns into a click, clicking on the ad. From the click, it turns into a lead, which is submitting your information. And then from the lead, which is all we're doing as a marketing company, that's where you guys handle the rest. The contacting, the booking appointments, making sure they show up on time, presenting the treatment, ensuring that they choose to work with you, especially if they're looking at multiple providers. So,
a question on the benchmark, is that the ideal or your historical performance?
This is what I think is ideal. Yeah.
Do you have any estimate what is your ROI on the existing customers?
Every single practice is different. I think, as I said, the biggest
Weighted or
lever.
average?
I'm sorry?
Any weighted or average ROI?
Well, there's practices that spend 3,000, there are practices that spend 30,000. I think it's more so to look at every single practice in itself and see how well they're doing. So what's important is that we measure the ROI. And a lot of companies are not measuring the ROI. So that's what I think needs to begin first. So within the first 6 months, we have to set up, okay, well, how good of a job? So if I'm bringing 100 leads, but you only get 2 appointments out of that, what is that indicative of? Probably an issue in terms of the way that we're contacting the leads, in terms of, maybe they don't like you as a dentist when they come in and they don't trust you. So there's a lot of elements that need to be measured, but aren't measured, that actually are only within the dental practice itself. So our job is to not only look at marketing efficiency, but look at the efficiency of revenue growth internally in the practice too, by evaluating your practice management software.
Do you see the possibility of the AI replacing lead contacting?
It already is.
Okay.
It's already done. Because your front office works a 9 or an 8 to 5. But do you know how many leads actually come in after 5 p.m.? Probably over 30-40%. So if you're not implementing some form of AI outbound, using an AI-driven call center, you are behind. But the issue is that there's not a lot of good ones. So that's a really good point. And I think that most dental practices are not doing this right now, but they will. So it would be a great idea that if you ever do any type of high performative marketing, I'm talking about when you're willing to spend 5,000, anywhere from 5,000 and above into advertising, and you're generating a lot of leads that are in the 3-digit column, I think it's absolutely a great idea to be looking into utilizing some form of AI-driven call centers. So I'm going to go through just the 3 quick scripts for the most commonly placed objections that I've heard, which is price. If they ask you for price, you say, I'm happy to share some ranges. I want to be very precise, but maybe you can tell me a little bit more about what outcomes you're hoping for. I'm thinking about it. That's totally fair. Would it be helpful if I scheduled a brief follow-up call for tomorrow or answer any questions that you may have? And they called others. That's very smart. Most patients choose us because we specialize in X, Y, Z. And if you would like to, I can reserve a no-pressure consultation for you, or even a virtual consultation if they don't want to come in person. So all of these things are really important to think about. When you're a practice owner, I see a lot of practice owners, they don't even listen to the calls. They don't even know how the calls are doing. They just say, oh, I just completely outsource my thinking when it comes to patient engagement to my office manager, and I think that's wrong. As a practice owner, you need to listen to your calls. So let's talk about the true cost of an untrained team. So if you are willing to put in some type of investment into your team, one, that builds a level of permanence in their ability to learn the skills to a point, it empowers yourself, and it solves one of the core issues, which is that marketing is only the top 25% of the funnel for patient growth. You still have the appointment setting, you still have the diagnosis, and then you have the case acceptance. So when it comes to outsourcing things, right? So a lot of dental marketing companies will have their own call center. And I think this is great in some aspects, but in other aspects, what it does is it creates a reliance. You now no longer as a practice can appoint them. You need the marketing company to do it for you. So I'm always in favor of having to ensure that your in-house team is capable of turning leads into patients. And a lot of the times, the marketing companies that do the calling for you, you have no idea how those calls are going. You have no idea if they have any false narratives about your practice, if they've revealed any pricing, if they violated anything with HIPAA. It's a dangerous game. And on top of that, they're very expensive, sometimes matching the amount of money that they want you to spend on advertising. So in my opinion, I think it's better to have your office being able to appoint those rather than, go ahead, Fazal.
Yeah, and something that I have also seen is that those marketing companies that take your leads and have these call centers, they may share your leads with other offices.
Yeah.
And we've caught so many of them, very dangerous, so it's not a good idea.
Fazil is completely correct on that. Think about it this way: if my job is just to generate leads, and I call them, and I have my company, let's say outsourced in the Philippines or India, call them, and let's say they don't book for your office, what am I going to do? I'm going to recycle them. I'll just send them to another practice. So I'll say I generated XYZ amount of leads, but you don't know how many of those were actually generated 3-5 months ago, generated for a different office. I think rather than having the marketing company do your marketing and your conversion, just do it yourself. You know, unless you're Nuvia or Clear Choice, where you have multi-practice locations, hundreds of locations, it doesn't matter. They're going to just send it to a different Nuvia. But for you guys, do your marketing yourself. Work with a marketing team that has a customized strategy just for you. So a little bit of a recap. Your front office's performance is the #1 multiplier or destroyer of your marketing spend. Speed, kill, and persistence are all measurable, and they're all coachable. And investing in your team's training is a direct investment into your ROI. So third, I'm going to talk about ROI and production outcomes. That's probably what he wants to hear about the most. How to tie every single marketing action to your bottom line. So we have some proprietary metrics here at Dentist Nerds that we measure. So majority of marketing agencies, they look at one metric, your cost per lead. How much are you paying for a lead? They don't have any metrics in terms of lead qualification. They don't have anything in terms of quality. They just say, hey, you know, you're paying $50 for a lead right now, and it looks great because most of our other clients, they're paying $100. But it doesn't matter. I could get leads from Russia. Would it be valuable for you? Probably not. So first thing is the cost per appointment. I look at the total amount of money you're spending, and I divide that by the number of shown appointments that you have. Cost per consultation, especially when it comes to high value cases, I'd look at the total spend, I divide that by the high value consultations that you have. You know, most of these are going to be in the full mouth reconstruction. Cost per new patient. Let's take a look at your total spend and divide it by the number of new patients acquired. So you have your appointment, right? If it's a low ticket, you know, we're talking about your pro fees, you know, it's probably just going to be appointment straight to a new patient. But if we're talking about things like periodontics, endodontics, prosthodontics, these things usually start at a consultation level before the treatment is assessed, diagnosed, and then accepted. So we really need to look at this in terms of a multi-stage funnel. So I'll give you an example, ROI. Let's say I have a practice that spends $15,000 a month to generate implant ads. And from that, they did 10 implant cases. I know that the cost of implant is $1,500 per case. How many people, show of hands, would pay $1,500 for an implant case? None of you would? If the implant case was $8,000? If the implant case is $8,000 and you pay $1,500 to land $8,000, show of hands, how many people would pay that? I think everyone's hand should be raised, right? Another one, veneers. Let's say $8,000 of ad spend generated 5 veneer cases, which now I know for every $1,600 I put into advertising. How many people here know how much their veneers cost at their practice? Anyone got any type of, what is it? 1,100. 1,100? Per tooth. Per tooth. 1,100 per tooth, right? So let's say they're going to do, I don't know, the full tops, or they're going to do at least 8 of them, 10 of them. What's the average that people do when they get into veneers? 6? So 1,100 per tooth times 6. If I said pay $1,600 to make $6,600, would you do it? That's better than the S&P 500. Guys, this is logical. You're going to do this every single time. If we can make a system that averages out that for every single veneer case that you get, is going to cost you $1,600. You're going to take that all day long. Let's talk about a real client of ours. This client only does all-on-fours. So their entire marketing system is based off of doing full arch dentistry. In a 6-month period, they spent $6,000 on paid advertising. And from that, they generated 53 full arch cases. That is what I would call a 1 to 17x return on investment, meaning they spent roughly around $40,000. I'm sorry, $6,000 on paid ads monthly. I just wanted to preface that. That's not $6,000 total. So $6,000 monthly. Within a 6-month time frame, $36,000 or $40,000 on ad spend was spent. And I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, that's a lot of money. $36,000 to $40,000 on paid ads, that's crazy. But if you're doing $662,000 of full arch production, so you're averaging 6 figures a month in full arch production off of 53 full arch cases, you will take that all day long. Better than Bitcoin, right? So, and then of course, that was at 410 leads that they got to 53 full arch cases with a 13% conversion rate. Not even that high. That's why when I say the higher the ticket, the more conversion matters. The more your ability to diagnose treatments and to earn the trust of your patient to do the treatment with you matters. So that's a real example of a 17x return on investment when this practice started working with us. Not all patients are created equal. That's why when it comes to paid advertising, the best things you can spend paid ads on are high value treatments, right? There's a lot of different types of marketing, but if we're talking about spending 5 figures a month into paid ads, there needs to be a very high return on investment. So Invisalign patients, if we run an Invisalign campaign, what do you think you guys tell me is the average value of an Invisalign patient? Does anyone know? 7,000? 6,000? So nationally it's like 4,500, but here in the Bay Area it's like 7,000. So the Bay Area is very expensive to run ads. Why? Because the treatment values are very high. So it equals out. Google's not stupid. So yeah, let's say $7,000. So if you ran an Invisalign campaign and you put $7,000 into your ad spend and you convert 2, that is 100% return on ROI. And if you're able to appoint more than that, for every single Invisalign case that you do, more than 1 is additional off the top. Same as implants. Let's say on average, if we look at all different types of implants, you know, single tooth, multi-tooth, overdentures, let's just say, for argument's sake, $8,000 is the average value of that patient. Is that fair to say? As like an average of all the different types of implant options, single tooth, multi-tooth. So people are thinking, well, I don't know, it sounds like a lot to spend $10,000 plus $20,000 into implant ads. But if you got a really good strategy, you have really strong videos, you're tracking the analytics, you see the return on investment, and you're closing multiple implant cases per month, you're gonna gladly take that. I'm in the business of helping dental practice owners that wanna skyrocket their business. I'm not talking about having small 1 to 2 to 3% incremental changes in your collections per year. I'm talking about how can you create dominance in your local area. So then same as a general new patient. What is the value of a new patient? This is a really hard one to quantify. But let's say a new patient, anything from pro fees, XRPs, SRPs, exams, x-rays. Let's say they come in twice a year for 6-month cleaning. The value of a new patient, let's put it at $850, right? But what we're not thinking about is lifetime value, right? The average patient probably sticks at your practice for 3 to 5 years. So take that $850, multiply that by 3 to 5, that's the LTV. And then we have customer acquisition cost. So if it costs you $100 to land that patient through paid advertising, that's $100 CAC, cost per acquisition cost. So what's really important in dentistry, which you guys don't do, dentistry doesn't do this, software, they do this every day. LTV to CAC ratio. What is my lifetime value that I get from a patient versus the customer acquisition cost I pay to land it? So 100 versus 850 times 5. Pretty good returns. So let's look at another version of this. This is a real dental practice. This is a full funnel view. And let's take a look at this. So in a 6-month time period, they spent a lot of money on advertising. It was $87,476. So it's a big number, $14,000 average per month. Their total in collections off of that was $305,000 within that 6-month period from doing marketing. That means their net revenue, meaning that how much they collected versus how much they spend, is about $217,000. That is an average return on ads investment, or we call that ROAS in marketing, of 267%. So you get a 2.7x return on ROI for spending that much is relatively good, even though that's not a great benchmark in terms of conversion. And that was off of 1,690 leads generated and 513 became new patients. That was what he asked me. He asked me, well, how much is your average ROI? I'm saying off of a 32% conversion, this is what we think is very realistic. So we need to change in terms of how we look at marketing. Most practice owners do not know how much they're spending for a new patient, how much does it cost them to land a consultation, how much of this is growing year after year. They don't understand this. They don't even know what's the average value of a new patient. Right? They don't have the business acumen because they don't teach you that when you go become a dentist, right? So first is asking questions. We focus on ROI. We don't focus on vanity metrics. What is a vanity metrics? Vanity metrics is like how many views did my website get from last month to this month. I don't care about that. What I care is how much did you produce from last month to this month? How good of a job is your office doing in terms of conversion? Unifying your data. Unifying your marketing data with your front office data and ultimately looking at your financials and your bottom line. Fix your biggest leak. So for a lot of companies, maybe the issue is they do marketing and they have no idea how much it's producing. Okay, so figure that out, measure that. The second thing could be I have a front office, but they got a 15% conversion. Okay, what do we got to do to fix that? And the third one is I just don't know how much I'm producing. Okay, well that needs to be measured. And then ultimately, what I tell everyone, every practice owner, is buy outcomes. Invest in outcomes. Don't just invest into leads. Measure what's your cost per case. Measure what's your cost for a new patient. And I'm going to show you an example of a client we work with. This is a 6-month transformation. Before working with us, after working with us. Before working with us, everything was guesswork. There was no frame. There was no framework, there was no analytics. Lead response time average was 4 hours. Now, they get to the lead in 8 minutes. We do everything we can. We have automated dialers set up. We have notifications set up. They must contact the lead within 8 minutes. Appointment show-up rate was 65%. We helped increase that to 88%. Cost per new patient, nobody knows. Go ask your practice owners. Friends, how much do you pay for a new patient? Most of them have no idea how much they pay for a new patient. After implementing data, we know it's $350 across all different types of campaigns that we run. And then ultimately, what is their return on investment? They had no idea. Now we know that they average a 7x ROI. And that's the thing I really want you guys to understand. Marketing is not a cost, guys. It is an investment back into your practice. Good marketing is an investment. Bad marketing is a wallet bleeder. So you have two options as a practice owner. You can stay in the guesswork lane. You have no idea what your data is. You have front office bottlenecks and you don't know how much is your return on investment. Or you can go towards a predictable growth framework. You have unified analytics. You have efficient systems. And you can measure your profitability. Oh, all right. And so what is the next step is When you guys are ready, when you have a practice that you're looking to purchase, you're ready to take that step, then we can have a 45-minute deep dive, a consultation together. We'll apply the Dentist Nerds 3-tier framework to the practice that you're looking to purchase or the practice that you're looking to start, and then you'll leave with a clear understanding of the single biggest opportunity for your growth. So we do this for pretty much all of the practices that I talk to. I try to understand exactly what it is that's gonna drive the highest return on investment. So I'm gonna leave the floor open for any questions that you guys may have, and if you want to, you can take a picture of this as a QR code, and then when you're ready, we can engage in a conversation together.